What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Dunk Talk. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more videos every day. So in today's video, we are going to get into the NBA playoff bracket predictions with only about a few more weeks left to go. So as we are coming to a close, I'm going to give you my thoughts on how the playoff series will break out this season. Of course, I am keeping in mind Kevin Durant's absence, Morant's absence, LeBron's absence, Luka's absence, and more. So let's go ahead and dive into this video. I'll share with you my bracket ideas, my predictions, and how I think things will shake out. So starting off in the East, I got the 4th seed Cleveland Cavaliers with the 5th seed New York Knicks. I think both teams will remain where they are currently in their standings, mainly because Cavs have the 15th easiest schedule in ranking, and the Cavs have pretty much remained incredibly consistent, staying at the number 4 spot in every version of my predictions so far. Now, even though they do have one of the easiest schedules remaining, which could technically give them a shot at even catching the Philadelphia 76ers for the number 3 spot, Cleveland's defense has slipped as of late, and their inconsistent bench hasn't provided much of a boost either. Plus, they also just lost to the 76ers on March 15th, so I think the 4th seed is a good position for them based on where they will stay. This will also give Donovan Mitchell a chance to take on his hometown against the New York Knicks, who have been balling out as well. So this could be a pretty crazy series, and they could easily go to 7 games. On the Knicks side of things, only the Cavs and the Boston Celtics have an easier schedule remaining, which is good news considering that Jalen Brunson has been in and out of the lineup with a sore left foot. I think Josh Hart has been a terrific addition to the rotation, averaging 10.9 points, 6.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.2 steals, and he is currently shooting an insane 61.3% overall and 60% from 3. The Knicks are destroying opponents with a net rating of plus 37.4, which is absolutely insane, with both Brunson and Hart on the floor together. And even though they lost just yesterday, Julius Randle went off for 57 points, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, none of these teams are considered among the powerhouses in the conference, but I do think that this could be the best overall series in the East's first round matchup. Now, next up on the East side of things, I think we're going to see Brooklyn Nets versus the Philadelphia 76ers. I think Philly will remain exactly where they are at the 3rd seed, and it probably will be unlikely that they land a top 2 seed in the East, thanks to them having the second hardest remaining schedule around. And with that being said, Joel Embiid is going to continue racking up monster games to keep his MVP candidacy alive, while James Harden is doing much better towards the end of this regular season, averaging 24.5 points, 12.8 assists, and 7.8 rebounds on 43.3% shooting from deep, especially over his last 4 games. So he is playing much better than when he first arrived to Philly. Now, only the Milwaukee Bucks have won more games since the trade deadline than the 76ers, who are probably as deep and as talented as any team in the Eastern Conference, with the new-look Nets fighting to simply stay in the playoff picture. This would probably be a quick first-round series in favor of the 76ers. Now, as for the Brooklyn Nets, all I can say is that it's a good thing that they had built up a strong record before trading Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving away, as the Nets are just 7-10 overall with a minus 3.6 net rating since the trade deadline. I still think that they are good enough to stay ahead of Miami, but honestly, it will be tough. But overall, this would be a nightmare of a first-round matchup for the Nets, who are currently 0-3 against Philly this season. Nick Claxton is a terrific defender, but his 215-pound frame is no matchup against Joel Embiid over the course of a playoff series. I think Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, and the rest of their team will win enough games between now and April 9th to keep Brooklyn in the top 6 spot, but in any situation, they will be in a tough spot no matter where they land. Now, next up, I got the Boston Celtics going up against the Miami Heat. Now, they've battled each other in 2 of the past 3 Eastern Conference Finals, and I think for this season, the Celtics would have a significantly higher ceiling in a winnable outcome. They are 10-7 since the trade deadline, and Milwaukee Bucks have been super hot as of late, so I think Boston will remain the 2nd seed. Of course, it doesn't help that a strained hamstring has caused the starting center of Robert Williams III to miss 8 games, and he's only played 28 times this entire season while missing the first few months because of that knee surgery. They're not too far away from the Bucks, where his return could possibly put them at the number 1 spot again, but I wouldn't bank on it. As for the Miami Heat, they have been able to jump over this shaky Brooklyn Nets team in the standings thanks to their own inconsistent play. The Heat have a net rating of minus 5.1, and that ranks them just about in the 25th spot in the NBA since the trade deadline. Now, thanks to the Kevin Love pickup, it hasn't really helped them out, and he is no longer a starter in the NBA, despite the fact that Miami keeps using him as one. He's been shooting like 23.1% in recent games, and if he doesn't get that up, then I don't know what else would justify his poor defense. Kyle Lowry is back after missing 15 games because of the knee soreness that he had, and he was immediately asked to play 36 minutes off the bench in that loss to the Orlando Magic. Lowry and Love can still be playoff contributors, but not with this kind of consistent workload mixed in with their age. I'm still betting on Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and the rest of the team to win a play-in game at home against the Atlanta Hawks, Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls, or whoever else ends up at the number 8th spot, which I think that the Miami Heat can do. Now, finally for the East, I'm finishing off the playoff series with the number 1 Milwaukee Bucks versus the number 8 Atlanta Hawks. Now, every team, honestly, should fear the deer. And what I mean by that is because Milwaukee has been the hottest team since the trade deadline. They've been going 14-3 with league-high plus-minus 8.4 net rating. Even with teams like Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers within striking distance, the Bucks have been the best team in all of basketball for multiple weeks now. Even with a minor wrist injury sustained to Giannis Antetokounmpo, it hasn't slowed down Milwaukee at all. And this team is still posting a positive net rating of plus 0.8 even when Giannis is not on the floor. The Bucks are deep, and they are experienced, and they are a championship team, and they have been far better defensively as of late. Chris Middleton is playing the best basketball of the season at 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 1 steal, and that's just over his last 11 games. And this is while Joe Ingles is shooting 58.8% from 3 over his last 7 contests. I think the Atlanta Hawks, after fighting through the play-in tournament just to be here, would be lucky to even win a single game in this series against the Bucks. The Hawks are barely a 500 team since Quinn Snyder took over as the head coach, and they are possessing an offense that ranks in the top 5 of the NBA, but with a defense that also ranks in the bottom 5 of the NBA as well. I think this may be enough to come away with the number 8 spot in the East, but not much else. Drew Holiday and Javon Carter would be a good and tough matchup for Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in a potential series, but no one on this roster is slowing down Giannis. This is a Hawks team that still needs to make some major defensive upgrades around Trae Young and will only have Murray under contract for 1 more season. So now let's hop into the Western Conference. First up, I think we are going to have the Suns versus the Clippers, and I should throw a caveat out there because Paul George just hyperextended his knee, so Clippers might fall out of the playoff race completely, but let's just assume that they continue to still keep up without Paul George, or if Paul George manages to come back within the next 2 weeks, which honestly I kind of doubt looking at how bad that injury was. But anyway, I got the Suns and the Clippers as the 4th and 5th seeds respectively. Now, despite losing Kevin Durant for potentially the rest of the regular season because of that ankle injury suffered during his warm-ups of the first home game, the Suns are still really a good team, and they could keep home court advantage in the first round. Chris Paul is still doing his thing, averaging 14.3 points, 10.1 assists, and 1.8 steals over his last 20 games, while DeAndre Ayton is putting up 20.1 points, 11.2 rebounds, 1 block in his last 19 games as well. Devin Booker is more than capable of being that offensive focal point while Durant recovers, and even though they have somewhat of a difficult schedule for the remainder of the season, I think that the Suns will remain in the top 4. But with that being said, Kevin Durant must return if they want a shot at winning this championship. Suns let go of a lot of depth in order to get KD, and there's plenty of star power in the West, so without KD, winning a championship for the Suns will be tough. Now, as for the Clippers, again, they were okay until Paul George hyperextended his knee. I truly do feel that he will be out for quite some time if there is some structural damage or some bone bruising, and I think that really hurt their chances in the play-in, let alone the playoffs. I think that ultimately they probably will sink down to the play-in tournament, but for the sake of argument, I'm just going to keep their positioning where they are since they only have like 9 games left. Now, for the Clippers, they have too many players on their team that are old, and Kawhi has become a shell of himself recently. I mean, he just got locked up by Lou Dort last night, and when they did acquire Westbrook, they had a really bad streak of losses. Shout out to Ty Lue for turning that around because they started to win and they started to bench Russ in the 4th quarter. But now with this Paul George loss, it'll really hurt them, and they'll be forced to play Russell Westbrook even more, which we saw how that turned out with the Lakers. It's just not a good strategy. Now, although this is an extremely talented team on paper, the starting lineup of Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris Sr., and Ivica Zubac, they do have a positive plus 13.8 rating. If that lineup was actually there, I think they'd have a strong chance of beating the Suns, but the operative word here is being healthy, and that is a big problem for this old team. Right now, they are 38-36, and they only have 2 games out of dropping out of the play-in. I think that they will remain the 5th seed if they can do it without Paul George. Again, only with 9 games remaining in the season, but it will be a tough road ahead without one of their main superstars. Now, next up, I got the Memphis Grizzlies against the Golden State Warriors, with the Grizzlies sitting at the 3rd seed and the Warriors sitting at the 6th. Now, between these two teams, there's been a lot of drama, especially between Dillon Brooks and Klay Thompson. Having these two teams face in the first round would simply be an awesome matchup for all NBA fans. Right now, Ja Morant is currently away from the team, and even though he is expected to return soon, my guess would be that he returns probably just a couple of games before the play-in tournament or playoffs actually start, and that's just to get some experience and momentum under his belt again. Steven Adams is weeks away from returning from a sprained knee. Unfortunately, Brandon Clark might even miss the next calendar year with that torn Achilles. And they've still been beating teams and playing well, surprisingly, so that's nice. But it's all thanks to their chemistry and having a guy like Tyus Jones, who is arguably the best backup point guard in the NBA, averaging 18.7 points, 8.1 assists, 3.5 rebounds, 2.4 steals, and shooting 45.3% from 3 in his 13 starts this season. Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Dillon Brooks are all capable of picking up the extra shots in Morant's absence as well. They have the second easiest schedule of any team in the West remaining, and I don't think Memphis is in any danger of falling past the 3rd seed. Now, as for the Warriors, they still have some issues winning on the road. I think that they are like 8-29 from this time of the recording. They've just been having a lot of problems winning winnable games. Andrew Wiggins is still out because of a personal issue, which many people have rumored to be his wife cheating on him with his best friend and him raising a kid that is not his. And the Warriors have been cycling through 23 different starting lineups this season, where now people are questioning whether Steve Kerr still has a voice in the locker room. Now, I'm still willing to bet that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, and Wiggins, when he gets back, can not only stay in the top 6 spot, but have a reasonable stretch in the playoffs itself. However, I don't think that this team resembles anything close to the team that won the title this year. I think that the dynasty of the Warriors is finally trickling towards the end. Now, the next up, this might be surprising for you guys, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. I got the Sacramento Kings versus the Los Angeles Lakers. And yes, I said it, the Lakers will make the playoffs. Now, I think given the amount of issues surrounding the Memphis Grizzlies, the Kings should end up with the number 2 seed overall, which is a huge swing, by the way, from their 12th place finish just a year ago. That credit definitely goes out to Coach Mike Brown and his staff for doing an incredible job turning this franchise around. I thought trading Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis was a bad idea, but they definitely proved me wrong. The Kings have the number 1 offense this season, and it's only gotten better since the trade deadline. Now, this matchup would be a pretty insane one, considering the two different teams' different styles of play. The Kings are known for being number 1 in offense, and the Lakers are known for being number 1 in defense. And the Kings would have to count on their continuity, chemistry, and superior scoring to take down a Lakers team that is far better than the one that they started with this season. As for the Lakers, even with LeBron James missing time with his foot injury, the Lakers are now 10-6 since the trade deadline, with at least 2 of those games, which should have been wins, but due to their own faults, they lost. So really, they could be a 12-4 team, which is very similar to what we see with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, for a while, I was thinking that maybe the Lakers had a chance of hitting that 6th seed, or maybe even the 5th seed, but with their recent losses to the Rockets and the Mavericks, I think that they are a 7th seed at best. And probably they would want to stay there realistically, because going up against teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, or maybe even going up against the Denver Nuggets, it might be a tough out for them in the first round. But going up against a Sacramento Kings team, which is still young, but they don't necessarily have playoff experience, it might ultimately hurt them. Now, still, I think the Kings would be a very tough matchup for the Lakers. I think that the Kings still have a shot at beating them in the first round, but I don't ever want to bet against LeBron and AD, especially with their playoff experience and how lethal they can be. Now, AD has been somewhat questionable in terms of performance lately. Overall, he's been great, averaging 28.8 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, shooting 56.4% from the field, and that's all with LeBron being out. And then you add the recent games of D'Angelo Russell playing well and Austin Reeves just dominating off the bench. I think the only way that they can sustain a first-round win against the Kings is for AD to really tap into his playoff bubble mindset, or just having the same type of mentality that Austin Reeves has, which is pretty much no fear. Now, this is a Lakers team with real depth now, and by making the playoffs and having a healthy LeBron James back, I think the Kings could turn into the underdogs in a series despite being 5 seeds ahead of the Lakers. And now lastly, I think the final matchup that we will see in the West will be the number 1 seed Denver Nuggets versus the number 8th seed Dallas Mavericks. Now, funny enough, Denver has stumbled as of late, and they've had some real defensive concerns, but they still have a 3-game cushion against the second team up, and the Nuggets have essentially locked themselves in as the number 1 seed in the West. They will still need Nikola Jokic to play as strong as ever to end the season on a positive note and to most likely retain a third MVP trophy over Joel Embiid. But Embiid is right around the corner and he is still playing great, so Nikola better step on the gas. Also, I wouldn't say this is an ideal matchup for Denver either, because even though Luka Doncic is currently out, once he comes back, between him and Kyrie Irving getting their stride together, they will simply attack Jokic in the pick and roll all series long. As for Denver's remaining schedule, they have enjoyed the second easiest schedule in the NBA to this point, and they should be able to somewhat coast the rest of the way. As for the Mavericks, I think they represent a handful of teams that can make life miserable for the higher seeds, possessing two of their best isolation scorers in the NBA. They have a bunch of solid three-point shooters around them to choose between, like Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber, Reggie Bullock, Davis Bertans. I mean, hell, even Christian Wood hits threes pretty well. But the question really becomes Luka's health. He's been nursing that left thigh strain for quite a few games now, and they'll have to battle against other play-in teams that are trying to make it too. The Mavs are just 6-10 since the trade deadline, but they have still proved to be quite good with their two stars when they are actually on the court together. They have a plus 9.2 net rating in a total of 472 possessions. So I think this is a pretty solid prediction for the playoff series with only about 9 to 12 games left for different teams. I think with some stars still out, some coming back, and one that was recently injured in Paul George, all teams between the 6th and the 12th seeds are in battle position. The playoffs basically start now for all of them, and it'll be interesting to see who actually makes it to the play-in and who actually makes it into the playoffs. I'm excited to see how my predictions actually turn out. The only thing I think that might change is the Clippers falling down drastically now that they've lost Paul George, but we'll see. Maybe they can still hang on. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below.